Estamos escuchando al secretario de Defensa de Estados Unidos, James Mattis, hablar esta noche sobre los ataques lanzados por Estados Unidos, Reino Unido y Francia en contra del régimen de Damasco. Es un momento en que todas las naciones civilizadas deben unirse para apoyar el proceso de paz de Naciones Unidas. Llamamos a las naciones responsables a evitar el uso de armas químicas. Y ahora se dará una actualización militar sobre los ataques de esta noche.
And our British attaché, Air Vice Marshal Gavin Parker. Secretary Mattis has just outlined the policy and legal framework for tonight's strike.
El secretario Mattis acaba de dar el marco legal de los ataques lanzados esta noche contra Siria. Esta noche, fuerzas británicas, francesas y estadounidenses lanzaron ataques contra objetivos en Siria. Nuestras fuerzas se integraron en la planeación y ejecución de estos ataques para atacar la capacidad del régimen de Damasco de utilizar armas químicas. El primer objetivo fue un centro de investigación científica. Esta instalación militar era un centro sirio para investigación para utilizar armas químicas y biológicas. El segundo fue una bodega de armas químicas. Y creemos que ese era el lugar donde principalmente guardaba Siria sus armas de gas sarín. Y además era un puesto de comando importante. Las fuerzas de los tres países involucradas en estos ataques, no puedo yo decir específicamente el tipo de ataque que se llevó a cabo, pero son distintos que los ataques lanzados en 2017. No fue un solo lugar en este caso. Esta noche hicimos ataques con nuestros aliados en diferentes sitios en Siria para atacar la capacidad del régimen de fabricar y desplegar armas químicas. Perderán años de investigación en este tema. El ataque no solamente fue un fuerte mensaje contra el régimen, y ahora vamos a responder las preguntas que tengan al respecto. ¿Hubo pérdidas estadounidenses que se sepa en este ataque?
This operation until Syria stopped using chemical weapons. Does this mean that the U.S. and its partners will continue military operations beyond this initial operation tonight?
¿Seguirán los ataques militares aparte de estos golpes iniciales? Nuestro propósito fue impedir que en el futuro Siria pueda seguir usando armas químicas.
Have every reason to challenge Assad should he choose to violate that. But right now this is a
Pero si Assad decide violar nuevamente la legislación en contra del uso de armas químicas, podría haber nuevos ataques.
We'll brief on that in the morning. We're not. We want to give you a full brief in the morning.
Queremos darles un informe completo y el tema de posibles víctimas estadounidenses será expuesto después.
Thank you for doing that. Have you seen any retaliation from the Russians or the Iranians?
¿Han visto algún tipo de respuesta por parte de Rusia o Irán a estos ataques?
Is it a matter of hours or days or could go longer than that?
Yeah, we did have some initial surface-to-air missile activity from the Syrian regime.
Hubo
That's the
algunos
only retaliatory
misiles
action that
lanzados
we're aware of at this
tierra-aire
time.
por parte de los sirios.
And the nature of the operation, we've completed the targets that were assigned to the United
Pero
States Central
pudimos
Command.
dar en los
Those
objetivos que
operations are
estaban
complete.
planeados.
General Dunford and also Secretary Mattis, could you talk a little bit more about your concerns that you've expressed earlier in the week about Russian escalation? General Dunford, were you able to talk to your
Podría hablar
Russian counterpart,
sobre un
General
tema
Gerasimov?
del que usted habló durante la semana, sobre el aumento de la actividad rusa en la guerra de Siria.
I would like to know the sense of your government about whether the situation with the Skripals and the Russian involvement in that, how that
¿Y cómo
Russian
se liga
involvement
esto
played a
con
role
el
in your
intento de
decision
asesinato
to
del espía
enter this
ruso
coalition this
Sergei
evening?
Skripal?
Let me address the last point first. Our attachés were kind enough to join us this evening. They're not going to get out in front of their president and prime minister respectively, so that the national messages will be provided from their capitals here very soon. But with regard to the Russian concerns, we specifically
Respecto de las preocupaciones sobre Rusia,
identified these targets to mitigate the risk of Russian forces being involved, and we used our normal deconfliction channels. Those were active this week.
informamos
to work
a
through
los rusos
the
de
airspace
las
issues
intenciones de
and so forth. We did not
nuestros
do any
ataques, de los
coordination
objetivos, a
with the
fin
Russians on the
de que
strikes,
no
nor
pudiera
did we
darse,
pre-notify
de que no se diera una conflagración.
Mr. Secretary, it was just a couple of days ago that you said you're still assessing the intelligence on the chemical
General,
weapons
hace
attack,
apenas un par de
suspected
días
attack.
usted nos decía que apenas
At this point,
estaban
do you know what the chemical was used
buscando los
in that
datos
attack?
necesarios
Was it
respecto
sarin?
del
Was it
ataque
chlorine?
químico en
And
Siria.
also, what is your evidence it was actually delivered
¿Cuál es la
by
evidencia que
the Syrian
utilizaron?
regime?
Say the last part again, Tom.
What's your evidence it was delivered by the Syrian regime? Are you quite clear it was?
I am confident the Syrian regime
Tengo
conducted
confianza
a
de que el
chemical
régimen
attack
sirio
on innocent people,
mató a
in
personas
this
inocentes.
last week, yes.
Estoy
Absolutely
seguro de ello.
confident of it. And we have the intelligence level of confidence that we needed to conduct the attack.
Tenemos la
As far
seguridad
as
basada en
the
información de
actual
inteligencia al
chemical
respecto.
used, do you know what it was? Was it nerve agent? Was it chlorine? Do you
¿Qué
have a sense
tipo
of what it
de
was?
agente químico se utilizó en este
We are
ataque?
very much aware of one of the agents. There may have been more than one agent used.
Sabemos
We
de uno
are
de
not
ellos,
clear
pero
on that
pudieron
yet.
haberse
We know
usado
at least
varios.
one chemical agent was used.
I just want to clarify on the deconfliction line. You notified the Russians ahead of time before the
Acláreme un
operation
poco esto de
began
que
what
ustedes
you
le
were gonna
avisaron
do
a
and
los
what
rusos
targets
antes de
you
los
were gonna
Going
ataques.
to be clear, the only communications that took place.
Para ser claros, la única
specifically
comunicación que
associated with this
tuvo lugar
operation before the targets were struck was the normal deconfliction of the airspace.
Antes de lanzar los ataques fue pedirles que liberaran el espacio aéreo de Siria.
General Dunford, you mentioned that the Russian or the Syrian air defenses had engaged. The Syrian state TV is saying they shot down 13 Tomahawk
Dice la televisión
missiles.
siria
Can
que
you
derribaron 13
refute that?
aviones.
Jennifer, I can't tell you the results. We literally, as
No
you
puedo
know,
hablar de los resultados de la operación.
time on target was about an hour ago.
Hace una hora
And we came straight up here
pudimos
to give you the
golpear
best
los objetivos
information
que
we have
estaban
right now. Tomorrow
planeados.
morning, as the Secretary will talk about in a minute, we'll give you the more detailed operation.
Más adelante le daremos
Some
detalles de la
but those
operación.
details aren't available to us right
Todavía
now.
no tenemos los
Airstrikes is
detalles.
over.
This wave of airstrikes is over. That's why we're out here speaking
Ya
to
se
you now.
terminaron los ataques aéreos.
Secretary Mattis, I just wanted to follow up on what you said about the legal basis for this strike. Could you talk a little bit more about
¿Podría
that?
hablar un
Because in
poco
your
más de la
testimony
base
the other
legal de
day,
este ataque,
it sounded like
del
you were
marco
saying
legal?
that this, a potential strike would somehow be linked to self-defense and the presence of American
¿Se considera
forces
un
in
acto de
Syria. Can you say a little
autodefensa
bit
este
more about
ataque?
that? And also regarding whether or not there will be future action or
¿Habrá
additional
futuras
strikes.
acciones?
You said that it would depend on whether or not the Assad government conducts future chemical attacks, but
Usted acaba de decir
can
que eso
you
depende de
explain
que
a little bit
si el
more
gobierno de
about
Assad
what would be the threshold for
utiliza
that?
nuevamente
Because
armas
there were
químicas.
repeated chemical attacks between the April 2017 attack and today.
Pero hubo
and
ataques
would you consider
repetidos, ataques
small-scale
químicos repetidos en
chlorine
Siria.
attack sufficient to launch additional strikes?
Right now, I will just tell you we're in close consultation with our allies.
En estos momentos
We
estamos
review
consultando con
all the
nuestros
evidence
aliados.
all the time. It is difficult, as you know, to get evidence out of Syria.
En estos momentos
But
es muy
right now, we
difícil
have
obtener
no
evidencia en
additional
Siria.
attacks planned. But as far as the legal authority under
En cuanto a la autoridad legal,
Article 2 of the Constitution, we believe the president has every reason
creemos que el
to
presidente
defend
tiene
vital
la
American
autoridad
interests, and that is
basada
what
en la
he did here
Constitución.
tonight under that authority.
Hi, sir. A couple questions for General Dunford. What were some of the targeting
Para el general
considerations
Dunford,
or difficulties involved with going after chemical facilities? How
¿cuál es
long
la
did the
dificultad
operation
de
take to
atacar
plan?
instalaciones de armas
And
químicas?
Secretary Mattis, last year's strikes were described as proportional, moderate.
Los
How would
ataques
you
del año
describe
pasado
this
fueron
year's
descritos como proporcionales y moderados.
contrast to that?
Yeah, Tony, we chose these particular targets.
Escogimos
to mitigate the
estos
risk
blancos
of, civilian casualties, number one.
porque así pudimos
chose these
evitar
targets because they were specifically
víctimas
associated with
civiles.
the chemical program, the Syrian chemical program.
Y porque eran
And obviously,
importantes
we
para el
take a look at
programa de
target
armas
planning and
químicas de
so
Siria.
forth. We look at the location relative to other populated areas,
Y
collateral
buscamos
damage,
que fueran
proportionality. So
zonas que no
these targets
estuvieran
were carefully
pobladas.
selected with proportionality, discrimination, and being
Utilizamos
specifically
la
associated with
proporcionalidad
the
y la
chemical
discriminación en la planeación de los
Weapons or
ataques.
Were any manned aircraft put in?
There were manned aircraft involved. I won't give you any of the details.
Hubo
operationally
aviones
till tomorrow
tripulados
morning,
involucrados
but
en
we
la
will do that at
operación,
that time.
pero más adelante le daremos los detalles.
A question to Secretary Mattis. So up until yesterday, and I'm going to quote you here, you said, I cannot tell you that we have evidence. So when did you become
Hasta
confident
ayer
that
no
the
tenían todavía
chemical
evidencia.
attack happened? And the
¿Cuándo
second
conocieron
one,
esta información?
Yesterday, after you said that.
Yes.
And then second, you talked about targeting the chemical weapons infrastructure of Al-Assad. If there were actually any chemical weapons or agents in those facilities that you targeted, I assume they would create health hazard in the region or not?
Si había armas químicas en estos lugares, si ustedes atacaron, ¿no crea eso un problema de seguridad en la zona? Como dijo el general, averiguamos hasta donde pudimos con nuestra información de inteligencia y evitamos hasta donde se pudo el que hubiese víctimas civiles. En una situación así, especialmente con gases venenosos, obviamente hay el riesgo de que pudieron haberse esparcido. Pero creemos que los funcionarios militares que estuvieron involucrados fueron los correctos.
When the surface-to-air defenses engaged, did they become a target, and did U.S. air power or
Se
other
respondió
assets take out those targets?
a los ataques sirios lanzados desde tierra. Nuevamente, en el curso de la noche vamos a reunir toda la información para dársela a conocer a ustedes. Mañana en la mañana le daremos los detalles del ataque.
Secretary Mattis or Chairman Dunford, last year, you changed the force protection levels for the Syrian troops that were U.S. troops that were in Syria. There are 2,000 U.S. troops in Syria. Have you changed force protection levels based on
Ustedes cambiaron el nivel de protección de los soldados estadounidenses en Siria. Se hicieron ajustes esta noche por lo que iba a ocurrir. Entiendo que ustedes le dijeron que iban a operar a los rusos, que iban a operar en espacio aéreo, pero no les dijeron de los blancos específicos. No, solamente les hablamos del espacio aéreo, no coordinamos con ellos los blancos que íbamos a atacar. Este tipo de información rutinariamente se la pasamos a los rusos para evitar conflictos en el espacio aéreo.
Can you talk a little bit about any Iran targets that you initially, Iran-associated targets that you initially considered, and why you may have not gone for them? And could your colleagues explain exactly
blancos en Irán que fueron considerados y ¿por qué no los atacaron finalmente?
Allied officers are here out of respect for the fact that they were part of the mission from planning all the way through to the political decision taken. And once their
Por respeto
heads of state,
a nuestros aliados
speak
que están aquí presentes,
then, that'll be the initial statement from those capitals.
esto es todo lo que diremos por el momento.
As far as any other targets, we looked
Respecto de
at
cualquier otro
targets
blanco, cualquier otro objetivo,
to address the chemical weapons threat that we have seen
diré que
manifested.
lo que quisimos fue atacar objetivos de fabricación y distribución de armas químicas. Fueron los únicos blancos que fueron examinados.
Secretary and General Dunford, you mentioned 3 target areas that were struck. How can you be sure that from now on these are all of the target areas or all of the involved protection facilities?
¿Cómo pueden estar seguros que estas eran las únicas instalaciones desde donde salieron armas químicas para el ataque y donde producen este tipo de armas? Hubo algunos en donde había un riesgo de daño colateral y esos no fueron escogidos.
The weaponeering was done, the modeling was done to make sure that we mitigated the risk of any
Todo se diseñó para
chemicals,
mitigar
that
ese
were in
riesgo
those
de
facilities to mitigate the risk of
víctimas
civilian
civiles.
casualties. So were there other targets that we looked at? There were.
Sí
We
vimos
selected these
otros
specific
objetivos,
targets, both based on the significance to the chemical weapons program,
pero
as well
tomamos
as
en
the
cuenta el
location and
significado que tenían para el programa de armas químicas de Siria.
It seems like this strike tonight was pretty limited, not too dissimilar from last year. I know it was 3.
Al parecer este ataque fue limitado como el del año pasado.
It still seems a little bit more targeted and more specific than what I think a lot of people were expecting. Can you walk us through your decision to did concern about escalation with Russia affect your decision to keep
¿Tomaron en
this
cuenta la
more
posibilidad
targeted
de una confrontación con
moving
Rusia
from there,
en el momento de
how
planear
much
estos
assurance
ataques?
Can you give us that this is going to do what the strike last year didn't do, which is basically to stop
¿Y está usted
President
seguro
Assad
que este
from-
ataque hará
from
lo que
using
no
chemical
hicieron los
weapons?
ataques del año pasado?
Nothing is certain in
No hay nada
these
seguro
kinds of matters. However,
en este tipo de cosas.
We used a little over double the number of weapons this year.
Usamos el doble
than
de
we
armas que el
used
año
last year.
pasado.
It was done on targets that we believed were selective.
Se hizo en objetivos que creemos que eran importantes para el programa de armas químicas de Siria.
We were not out to expand this. We were very precise and proportionate.
Fuimos
but at
muy
the same
precisos y
time, it was a heavy
proporcionados.
strike.
Mr. Secretary, prior to the attack,
Señor secretario,
was it
antes
to
del
get,
ataque,
the support from the allies, not only from an intelligence point of view, but also just
buscaron el apoyo de los aliados.
Right. It's always important that we act internationally in a unified way over
Siempre es
something,
importante que internacionalmente
especially that
actuemos de una
that
forma
is such an
unificada,
atrocity as this,
especialmente ante una
that
atrocidad
we've
como esta.
observed going on in Syria. But I would also tell you
Pero
that
también yo le
these
diría que-
allies, the Americans, the French, the British,
que los
we have
británicos y
operated
franceses
together through thick and thin, through good times
estamos
and
juntos
bad.
en las buenas y las
And,
malas.
this is a very, very well integrated team.
Y es un equipo muy bien
Wherever
integrado.
we operate, we do so with complete trust in each other, the
Operamos con
professionalism,
absoluta
more than that,
confianza en el
the
otro.
belief that one another will be there when the chips are
Creemos que el
down.
otro estará con nosotros cuando se
it's
necesite.
important, and it's a statement about the level of trust between our nations.
Este es un ejemplo del nivel de confianza que hay entre nuestros países.
Could you just let us know whether the Syrians were able to hide a lot of these chemical weapons in the last several days, since there's been so much talk about a possible strike? Did that give the Syrians time to kind of move some of these
Hubo
weapons off
tanto
limits?
que se dijo sobre los posibles
And then
ataques, no le dio tiempo eso a
just to
Siria
confirm, earlier
de
we were
prepararse.
saying You had information about one of the chemicals, but we're all assuming that means chlorine, that you had information confirming chlorine, but not necessarily sarin. If you could just clarify that part.
Ustedes tenían información de gas
I'm not
cloro,
aware
pero
of
no
any
necesariamente
specific
gas sarín.
actions that the Syrians took to move chemical weapons in the last couple of days.
Yeah, we're very confident that chlorine was used.
Tenemos confianza de que sabemos que se usó gas cloro en el ataque químico en Siria.
Targets that you first examined and then triaged down to the 3 tonight. It sounds like you went after facilities and not the actual weapons, as indicated earlier, to minimize accidental risk to civilians. In the targets that remain, could you characterize perhaps the ability for Syria to ramp up again?
En los objetivos que no fueron atacados.
Yeah, I think it's too early to make that assessment. It's too early to make that assessment right now.
Bueno, le preguntaron si los objetivos no atacados tenían alguna importancia para el programa de armas químicas. Dice, no es todavía el momento de hacer esa evaluación.
The only reaction that I'm aware of at this time was Syrian surface-to-air missiles.
¿Qué reacción tendrá el régimen de Assad? Hasta ahora la única reacción que sabemos es el lanzamiento de misiles tierra-aire. En la mañana tendremos más detalles al respecto. Nuevamente, los objetivos de esta noche fueron planeados para reducir la capacidad del régimen sirio de usar armas químicas. No quisimos hacer nada más allá de eso. Esperamos una campaña de desinformación en un esfuerzo para mantener la transparencia. El Estado Mayor dará una información con detalles sobre la operación de esta noche. Gracias nuevamente por venir a esta conferencia. Y de esta manera termina la conferencia del secretario de Defensa de Estados Unidos, James Mattis, y los generales que son parte del Estado Mayor de las Fuerzas Armadas estadounidenses.